When I opened the box hidden behind the bookshelf in the master's study, I thought I was just being curious, maybe even reckless. But what I found inside, it didn't just change my life, it ended theirs. It was supposed to be just another cleaning day at the Fernandéz estate, dusting chandeliers, folding linens, pretending not to hear the arguments behind closed doors. But that morning, something felt different. The house was too quiet, and the door to the study, which was always locked, stood slightly open. I should have walked away. I should have closed that door and minded my place. But I didn't, because in that room, buried beneath a lifetime of lies, was the one thing they never wanted the world to see. The truth. And once I saw it, there was no going back. Not for me, and certainly not for them. This is the story of how a maid uncovered a secret so dark, it destroyed a dynasty. Maria didn't grow up with dreams of mansions or chandeliers. Her world was simpler, smaller. Just surviving each day was enough. She lived in a cramped two-room apartment at the edge of the city, where cracked walls whispered more stories than the people inside them. Her mornings started before sunrise, washing clothes by hand, cooking rice with just enough seasoning to stretch for 2 meals. Then she'd check on her mother. The cough had gotten worse, and with no insurance, the little money Maria made went straight to medicine, or what she hoped would be medicine. Her younger brother, Tomas, was the reason she kept going. He had the mind of a genius and the shoes of a child who'd outgrown them. 3 years ago, Maria believed if she could just keep him in school, maybe one of them would escape this life. Work was never steady. A few hours cleaning offices, babysitting for neighbors, anything that paid cash. But none of it was enough. When she heard that the Fernandéz family was looking for a full-time housekeeper, she hesitated. They were powerful, untouchable, the kind of rich that didn't just own homes, they owned quiet. Still, Maria applied. She wore her best borrowed blouse, brushed her hair straight, and swallowed her fear. To her surprise, they hired her on the spot. The pay was good, enough to catch up on rent and maybe even take her mother to a real doctor. But from day one, something about that mansion felt cold. The way the wife looked through her, the way the staff avoided certain hallways, and the rules strict, silent, strange. Maria told herself it didn't matter. She had a job. Her family needed her. She had no idea what she'd walked into. The Fernandéz mansion didn't just feel big. It felt like another planet. Marble floors that clicked under her cheap shoes. Walls so high they swallowed sound. Even the air smelled different, like old books, imported candles, and secrets. Maria had never seen anything like it. Spiral staircases that led to rooms she wasn't allowed to enter. Mirrors that seemed to watch more than reflect. And silence, so much silence, it rang louder than noise. She kept her head down, did her work, cleaned the same rooms over and over, even when they looked spotless. No fingerprints, no signs of life. The Fernandézes were polite, in that way rich people are when they don't want to learn your name. Mr. Fernandéz was always rushing off to calls. Mrs. Fernandéz, always sipping wine before noon. And their teenage daughter, Camila, barely spoke, just stared at Maria like she'd seen a ghost. There were strange rules from the start. Never enter the East Wing. Don't ask about family photos. And always knock twice before entering the study. She didn't question it. Not then. She needed the job. But little things started to feel off. A locked door that once stood open for a second too long. A family portrait missing, someone cut clean down the middle. And voices at night, muffled, urgent, like arguments wrapped in fear. The other staff kept their distance. Some refused to talk about the past. Others warned her quietly to mind her business if she wanted to stay. Maria told herself she was imagining things, that rich people just lived differently. But something inside her knew this wasn't just a job. This house, this family was hiding something. And sooner or later, she was going to find it. At first, Maria tried to ignore the feeling, that uneasy sense crawling up her spine whenever she walked past the East Wing. She reminded herself she was just the help, not family, not a guest, not someone who asked questions. But the house had a way of whispering to her. It was in the details, the ones no one else seemed to notice. Like the photograph in the grand hallway. One day, it showed 3 people. The necks, only 2. Or the way Camila flinched whenever her father raised his voice. And how Mrs. Fernandéz once said, "I don't want another Elena situation." Then went completely silent, like the name itself was poison. Maria didn't know who Elena was. No one spoke of her. No pictures, no trace. Just silence, thick, deliberate, and fragile. Then one morning, while dusting the library, Maria spotted something strange. A letter had fallen between 2 books. It was old, yellowed, addressed to someone named Elena Fernandéz, but never opened. Her heart pounded. She slipped it into her apron, hands trembling, and read it later in the laundry room. The words inside were cryptic, desperate. They said, "If I speak, they'll take everything. But I can't live like this. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone." Maria couldn't sleep that night. She lay awake thinking about that name, Elena. Why was she never mentioned? What happened to her? The next day, she noticed something else. In the master's study, Mr. Fernandéz left his briefcase unlocked. She wasn't snooping, just cleaning. But a document caught her eye. It was a legal form, part of a will, and at the bottom, scratched out in thick black ink, was a name. Elena. The rest was unreadable. But it was enough to know that someone had tried to erase her, not just from paper but from memory. Maria's hands shook as she folded the paper back. Her chest was tight with questions. Who was Elena? Why had her name been erased? And what did this family do to hide her? She thought about walking away, pretending she saw nothing. That would have been the smart thing to do. But something inside Maria wouldn't let go, not because she was nosy, but because something felt wrong, deeply wrong. She'd grown up poor, forgotten. She knew what it felt like to disappear while the world kept moving. And if someone had done that to Elena, Maria couldn't pretend she didn't see it. Not anymore. Maria tried to forget the letter, the torn photo, the scratched out name on the will. But some truths don't stay quiet. They echo. And every corner of that mansion seemed to echo Elena's name without ever saying it. Maria began noticing more. A strange key left on a silver tray by mistake. Camila, crying alone in the garden, whispering, it wasn't her fault. It was never her fault. And then, one night, Maria heard it again. The voices. But this time, they weren't muffled. They were angry, desperate. She pressed her ear to the wall behind the master's study. "Mrs. Fernandéz, she's digging. That maid, she knows something. Mr. Fernandéz, we warned the last one. We can't let this happen again." Maria stepped back, heart pounding. The last one. What happened to the last one? That night, she made a decision, not out of bravery, but because fear only has power when you run from it. She waited until the house was asleep, and with shaking hands, used the strange key on a door she was never supposed to open. The east wing. It smelled of dust and abandonment, faded furniture, covered mirrors, time frozen in velvet. But on a shelf, she found a diary, leather-bound, locked. But the keyhole was tiny. She used a bobby pin, and it opened. The name inside the cover made her blood run cold. Elena Fernandéz, page after page. It told a story of isolation, of a daughter forced into silence, of a scandal the family was willing to bury, literally. They took my voice, my name, my future. But I wrote it all down. If someone finds this, don't let them win. Maria read until dawn, and when she closed the final page, she wasn't the same. Elena hadn't disappeared. She'd been erased, and now Maria knew too much. She tried to act normal the next day, to pretend nothing had changed. But eyes followed her. The tension was sharp, electric. That evening, as she walked past the front door, she saw the driver speaking into a phone. When he noticed her watching, he hung up fast. She wasn't safe anymore, not in that house. But it was too late to stop, because when you know the truth, the real truth, you only have two choices. Bury it like they did, or drag it into the light, no matter the cost. Maria barely slept that night. Every creak of the mansion felt louder. Every whisper in the hallway felt like it was about her. She kept Elena's diary hidden beneath the lining of her cleaning cart. Every word inside it felt heavier now, like a truth too big to carry alone. But what was she supposed to do with it? She was just a maid, a nobody. And yet, someone knew. Because the next morning, everything changed. The routine was different. The other staff were quiet. Too Quiet. Maria entered the kitchen, only to find Mrs. Fernandéz already there waiting. A glass of wine in her hand. At 8 a.m. "You've been curious, haven't you?" she said, smiling with her mouth but not her eyes. "That's dangerous in this house." Maria froze. She wanted to deny it, but her hands were shaking. Then came Mr. Fernandéz, calm, controlled, like someone used to solving problems before they became public. "We know you've been exploring," he said. "This job is a privilege, and privileges can be taken away." Maria didn't say a word. She didn't need to. They already knew. By that evening, she was dismissed. No explanation, no final paycheck. Just a cold warning. "We suggest you forget what you think you found." But as she packed her things, she noticed something chilling. The diary. Gone. They'd taken it. Panic hit her like a wave. That diary was her proof. Without it, she was just another poor girl with a wild story no one would believe. For a moment, she thought about letting it go. Walking away, starting over. But then she remembered Elena's words. "If someone finds this, don't let them win." This wasn't just about Maria anymore. It was about every person they'd silenced, every secret they'd buried, every lie they'd built their legacy on. So Maria made a choice. Not because she wasn't scared, she was, but because fear, when pointed in the right direction, becomes courage, and she was done being quiet. Maria didn't have power, she didn't have money, but she had something the Fernandéz family never expected: the truth. And she wasn't going to keep it hidden. With the diary gone, she thought she had nothing left, but she remembered something: the letter, the old, yellowed envelope she had found behind the books. It was still with her, folded neatly in her bag, like it had been waiting for this moment. She scanned the letter again, searching for anything, an address, a clue, and there it was, a name she hadn't noticed before. Lucia Ramos, attorney at law. Maria didn't know who Lucia was, but the next morning, she went to find her. The office was small, buried between shops in the old part of town. The woman behind the desk looked surprised when Maria handed her the letter. She read it. Then she looked up, tears in her eyes. "You found this?" Maria nodded. Lucia whispered, "I thought Elena's voice was gone forever." Turns out, Elena had written her will one that named her as the rightful heir to a portion of the Fernandéz estate. But it was never filed. Never honored. Because the family claimed she'd run away, that she was unstable, that she didn't want anything to do with them. It was a lie, a carefully constructed lie, kept alive by money, fear, and silence. Lucia had tried to fight it once, but without proof, she was shut down. Now, with Maria's testimony and the recovered letter, they had a case. The story didn't break on the news at first. It exploded online. Maria posted a video, telling everything. The photo, the will, the diary, Elena's words. No theatrics, no edits, just the truth. Within hours, it went viral. People shared it across the country. Hashtags trended. Reporters came knocking. And suddenly, the Fernandéz name wasn't a symbol of wealth anymore. It was a symbol of disgrace. An investigation followed. Lawyers, prosecutors. And finally justice. The will was authenticated. Elena's name was restored. And her inheritance, millions, was redistributed according to her original wishes. Mr. and Mrs. Fernandéz were charged with fraud, coercion, and destruction of legal documents. Their reputation collapsed in front of the same cameras they used to smile into. But for Maria, it wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity. About truth. She had stood up, spoken out, and for the first time in her life, someone listened. Maria didn't expect anything in return. She never spoke the truth hoping for reward. She did it because it was right, because silence had cost Elena her life and nearly cost Maria her soul. But sometimes life has a strange way of honoring courage. After the trial, the lawyer Lucia called Maria back into her office. There was something Elena had written in the margins of a notebook. "Years ago, if anything happens to me, let whoever finds the truth have what I was denied. Let them start over. Let them be free." And just like that, Maria was no longer just the maid who uncovered a secret. She was the girl who broke a curse. The court granted her a portion of Elena's estate. Enough to leave behind the world that never saw her. enough to build the life she once thought belonged only to others. She didn't buy designer clothes or fancy cars. She bought her mother a small house with a garden, enrolled her younger brother in college, and opened a quiet cafe on the edge of town, a place where no one would ever feel invisible again. But her biggest change wasn't material. It was inside her. For the first time, Maria walked into rooms like she belonged there. She looked people in the eyes, and when someone told her, "You're just lucky," she smiled and said, "No, I just stopped being afraid." What started with a locked room, a missing name, and a broken photo ended with something much bigger than revenge. It ended with healing, with truth, and with one woman choosing to rise when everything around her told her to stay small. Some people think power lives in bank accounts and marble floors, but Maria learned something different. Power lives in truth, in the courage to speak when no one else will. In the quiet persistence of those the world tries to forget. She had entered that mansion to sweep floors and scrub mirrors, but in the end, she became the reflection they couldn't hide from. Maria didn't just uncover secrets. She reminded the world that justice doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it comes in secondhand shoes and tired eyes. Sometimes it shows up with a mop in one hand and truth in the other. Elena's story was almost erased, but because of Maria, it now lives on, honored, heard, and whole. And Maria's story? It's a reminder that the ones at the bottom don't stay there forever, that silence isn't peace, and that the smallest voice, when it carries truth, can shake even the tallest walls. So if you ever feel invisible, if you've been told to stay quiet, stay small, stay out of the way, remember this: sometimes the truth hides behind silk curtains, but even the poorest hands can pull them open. And when they do, the whole world finally sees what was always there.